What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg, and listen, I love the NBA, but there are times that I feel like Commissioner Adam Silver is trying to work against the best interests of the leagues. In particular, the big hot topic this year is tanking. Adam Silver came out and said there's going to be drastic changes to the way that the NBA handles tanking and tries to prevent it from happening going forward. And I could not disagree with Adam Silver and his proposals more. So bear with me while I read these three proposals that Shams tweeted that they're going to go over. Now, obviously, when the NBA leaks stuff like this and things they're going to be talking about, they're trying to get a fan reaction and see the feedback that they get before they make any of these drastic changes. So part of the reason that we know these beforehand is to see how the fans of the NBA, you and myself, react to it, to see if these are things that are going to be plausible or how they'll be accepted by just an average NBA fan. So there were three different proposals that were leaked. 18 teams in the draft lottery, so the seeds 7 through 15 in each conference, flattened odds. The bottom 10 teams all get an 8% chance, and the remaining 20% goes to teams 11 through 18. Next proposal, 22 teams in the lottery using a 2-year record, seeds 7 through 15 plus the 4 playoff first-round exits in both conferences. Lottery teams would reach a minimum win total floor in each season, such as 25 wins. If a team falls short of the floor, it gets slotted to meet the floor. Top 4 drawn as part of lottery, as is currently. Final one, 18 teams in a 5x5 lottery. Bottom 5 teams have equal odds for the top pick, with lottery formed for picks 1 through 5. Bottom 5 teams have a floor at 10. Those that fall out of the top 5 get sorted in a separate drawing. Now, first off, all of those are pretty confusing. And I think he has totally the wrong idea in how to fix this problem, if it is even a problem. And I'll get into that later. But in my opinion, tanking is not a problem. I think the whole lottery system should be gotten rid of. I think that is the easiest solution to all of your issues. So let me tell you a little story. In 2002-2003, the 4 worst teams in the NBA were the Denver Nuggets, went 17-65. The Cleveland Cavaliers went 17-65. The Miami Heat went 25-57, and the Toronto Raptors went 24-58. Can you make any guesses who those 4 teams drafted in that upcoming draft? The Denver Nuggets took Carmelo Anthony. The Miami Heat took Dwayne Wade. The Raptors took Chris Bosh. And the Cleveland Cavaliers took LeBron James. All of those franchises had their fortunes completely flipped based on the fact that they were the worst teams in the NBA and they got the best picks. Now, obviously, Darko Milicic went to the Detroit Pistons. They had done a trade with the Vancouver Grizzlies to get that pick. But those 4 teams got to see championships for both the Cavs and the Heat, and very competitive playoff series, particularly by the Nuggets, made long runs with Carmelo Anthony, and the Toronto Raptors made huge improvements with Chris Bosh. The best way to improve bad teams and prevent them from tanking year after year is to give them the best picks. I don't know why that's so confusing. That's what happens in the NFL, and that's one of the reasons that it's one of the best leagues in the world, because there is the ability to have parity. Now, obviously, terrible organizations are probably going to stay bad, but when you look at the way that the NBA is right now, there are 6 teams that have never gotten a first overall pick. It's the Nuggets, Pacers, Thunder, Grizzlies, Heat, and Jazz. Right now, the Jazz and the Pacers are 2 of the worst teams in the NBA, both vying for that number 1 overall pick. If you went and talked to any Utah Jazz fan or Indiana Pacer fan and said, hey, next year I can give you a lineup of Keontae George, A.J. DeBonsa, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Walker Kessler with Ace Bailey in there as well, and Bryce Sensabaugh, would you accept that for having a crappy year this year? Every Jazz fan is going to say yes. Let's flip to the Pacers side. Next year, you get the opportunity to have Tyrese Halliburton, A.J. DeBonsa, Pascal Siakam, and Zubac. Who's not taking that? So the people that actually don't like, or that see tanking as a big problem, are one, gambling companies, which has the NBA by the absolute balls right now, and particularly Adam Silver. if they have an issue with this and they express that frustration to Adam Silver, he's obviously going to make drastic changes. And I think that that's one of the issues as far as like the integrity of the league and the way that we see it. But that and the other people with a big problem are going to be some of your media companies. Now, obviously, they don't want to air games by crap teams. But the frustrating part to me is the fact that the Utah Jazz have not gotten a first overall pick is part of the reason that they're still not good. And the same thing you could say with the Brooklyn Nets. They haven't got a first pick in a while. And the Washington Wizards haven't gotten a first pick. Last year, the Dallas Mavericks were the 10th worst team in the league, and they got lucky and got to Cooper Flagg getting the number 1 overall pick. If that would have went to a better not a better organization, but to one of these other organizations, they wouldn't be tanking for as long. But because you have this lottery system to where players aren't, the worst teams aren't getting the best picks, they're kind of stuck in this loop of can't get out of being a crap team because they're not getting the best players. And that is the whole reason a draft is created. If that is not your goal, to redistribute talent amongst the league, then you shouldn't have a draft at all. And I'm so against getting rid of the draft because obviously we know that there'd be incentives to go to big markets. In particular, would a shoe brand pay you more money if you went and played on the Lakers or a team that was competing for a championship rather than going to Memphis or Utah or Indiana or, some of these smaller market teams? But the draft is the only lifeline for some of these teams. The Utah Jazz have been a very competitive basketball team since the 90s. They had Carmelo and John Stockton were very competitive. Then they went Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer, Mehmet Okur, Andre Karolinko. They transitioned. They had Gordon Hayward for a few years, Al Jefferson, and then Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. This is a good organization that has been competitive for a long time and is in a down stretch because they haven't landed a super elite pick in a little while. Ace Bailey's been playing really good, but all in all, and obviously the Pacers were in the finals last year. So the easiest way to fix this problem is just make sure that the worst teams get the best pick. And Adam Silver instead wants to make it to where there's 20 teams that are involved in this draft lottery, which is the worst possible solution you can have. Because now you're incentivizing teams that are right in the play-in cusp or right at the cusp of the playoffs. If you're the Warriors with Steph Curry being hurt and hey, we have no chance this year, you know what we're going to do? Let's go ahead and tank so that we can get lottery odds. That's a terrible solution. You would rather the Warriors be competitive, try to bring Steph Curry back, and make the play-in games interesting if he's able to return for those. So with the system I'm proposing, which is just the worst teams get the best picks, you're only going to have real tanking from like the 5 worst teams in the NBA. And at the end of the day, if you're frustrated because you tuned in to watch the Brooklyn Nets or the Utah Jazz or the Indiana Pacers play basketball and you're mad that they aren't winning basketball games, then you just don't understand how those rosters are constructed right now. And as a fan of a team that's actually good, do you want to see your team lose an important playoff-worthy, playoff seeding game to a terrible team? Or are you okay with, hey, they didn't play all their best guys tonight and we got an easy W? I don't have any problem with that. I'm a Boston Celtics fan, so if we get the chance to play some bullcrap team and that helps us in the chase to make sure we get the 2 seed over the New York Knicks, that's fine by me. And what Jazz fan is upset if they get AJ DeBonsa and are super competitive in the Western Conference next season and for the next 10 to 15 years? It's what we see in the NFL, and I talked about that before. When the Colts got the number 1 pick and they drafted Peyton Manning, you know what they got? 15 years of competitive football from their favorite team. So yes, you'll take some crap seasons for ultimately setting your team up for long-term success. And it's what Adam Silver doesn't understand, but he doesn't understand so many things with what fans want. Now listen, the ratings in the NBA this year are as high as they've been in a long time. They increased massively with the NBA going to NBC and Peacock. The games are a little more accessible, especially on a lot of streaming apps that a lot of us have. You also see a little more positivity from the media now that we got Inside the NBA off TV for the most part. Shaq and Charles Barkley and those guys are just so negative all the time. You bring in the Amazon crew that has really done a great job propping up the league and NBC. So we've seen the NBA make some positive moves. The in-season tournament, it draws some eyeballs. It's kind of interesting. But all in all, why are they so focused on this particular issue when it is not the problem? You have an outlier draft this year with probably 5 really, really good players or really, really interesting prospects with DeMonsa, Peterson, Boozer, Acuff, and is it Caleb Johnson from North Carolina? But all those guys are super interesting prospects. So yes, teams are going to try to lose games for the chance to get one of those guys on their squad and actually compete for something. The worst place you want to be is right in the middle of the pack year after year. So let's focus on some of the real issues in the NBA. Have you watched an NBA basketball game lately and seen some of the foul baiting that's happened year after year? And the NBA said that they were going to be putting in rules to stop some of the offensive players jumping into defensive guys. They were going to stop some of the flopping by attributing technical fouls. But the NBA hasn't really done any of those things. So sometimes the actual product on the court, and I love the NBA as much as anybody, but sometimes the actual product on the court can be like, holy smokes, these two teams are just shooting fouls all game, or that player's got to the foul line a ton of times. And that's maybe more of where the issue lies. And the other issue the NBA has is the way that they market their young players. They've spent so much time continuing their marketing focus on LeBron James, on Steph Curry, on Kevin Durant, that they sometimes doesn't feel like they've put enough emphasis on guys like Cade Cunningham, especially from their big partners like ESPN. The ESPN has a talk show every single day, and all they do is crap on young guys. But then they spend so much time talking about LeBron James' legacy and things of that nature. No one wants to hear that conversation anymore. NBA, you have the chance to really build on this league. You made probably a good I know you just did it for the money, but it ended up good for you that the league is going to NBC and Amazon, places that seem to have benefited the consumer that can watch the games a little easier and also enjoy some of the commentary. So take this opportunity to look at all these young players. Victor Wembanyama has been unbelievable. He's in the MVP conversation this year. Cade Cunningham and the Pistons had an awesome season. Jason Tatum just came back from an Achilles injury in 10 months? So you have so many storylines that could dominate the headlines, and you're focusing so much on the negativity of tanking when that is not the issue. And as fans of teams that aren't very good, I think they would agree. You don't want to see your team suck for 5 years. But you know who doesn't suck for 5 years? When the Spurs end up landing Stephon Castle and Victor Wembanyama and Dylan Harper, now they get to watch their team be awesome for the next 15 seasons. Cade Cunningham and the Pistons are going to be good for a long time. The NBA has this all wrong. Adam Silver is going to greatly be a detriment to the league if he continues with these proposals and to be so manipulated by gambling companies. This league has a real chance to do something special. That's all we got for you. Let me know your thoughts. If you disagree with me, feel free to have a conversation. I'll respond to whoever. If you're a big hater of tanking, or if you're a fan of one of those low teams, is it frustrating to you to see your team try to lose basketball games? Appreciate y'all watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Cyborg out.